Matt Cameron with DRE Medical. Today we're going to learn how to replace the display board, control board. It's all one piece, and this typically happens if we have a power surge, potentially our power supply has gone out and maybe created some damage here. So if this screen is black, typically that means it's not getting power. So first thing we're going to do is check our power supply. So let me show you how to do that, and then we will go about getting this switched out. Okay, so typically the power supplies are mounted underneath the flange. So you'll look under the ceiling cover. If you don't see them above, sometimes installers will just put them above the lights. They might be sitting here. So either way, you need to find the power supplies. So you can see on these aren't powered up. These green LEDs here would be lit if there was power. So I'm going to show you how that looks on our test rig that we test light heads with before we ship them out. All right, so here are two power supplies, one for each light head. So if I test my incoming voltage at about 117, so when you have your line, that's your main, then your neutral or your white return, and then your ground. So now I'm going to go ahead and switch into DC mode, and I will test at V minus or V negative and V positive. So we'll see what we have coming out. Looks like we've got 24 volts coming out. Now, if I had to make an adjustment here, I would go over to there's a pot right here, and I can turn up that voltage. So if you can see right there, I've already turned it up to, so we want to be right down just in that 24 range for a 9000, 26 for the 9000 plus, and 34 for the Maxx Luxx 160. So my LED's on, I have output voltage, so I know that my power supply is good. If I don't have output voltage and my LED's off, chances are that power supply is bad. So once we determine whether it's the power supply or in fact the display board, if this was good, then chances are it is the display board. So let's go and get that switched out. All right, so now we're going to remove the back cover of the light. It's just some Phillips screws. Got two in here. I've done this a couple times. So we're going to remove that back panel. Now remember, if you remove this before you cut the power, this will be live. Even though the display board is bad, you've got your DC voltage coming in here. Now that's not so now that we have the cover off, just be aware that we do have power coming into the board. Even though the display board is potentially bad, and that's what we're just going to move forward with, our display board's bad, is that you're still going to be getting voltage here if your power supplies are still on. So just be aware of that. I always like to check my voltages just for my own peace of mind. Okay. So now that I've checked my voltage, I'm not going to get shocked. So if I want to remove the whole board assembly, there are 4 screws that hold it in. The top 2 are not tightened all that much. So you're going to be looking at this screw and this screw that's hidden behind this screw there. So I'll leave that one alone. I'm going to loosen this one a little bit, and then I'm going to remove these 2. Now, these 2, getting these back in at the end is really kind of the hardest part of all this. But let's go ahead. If we remove those, you'll see that, and if you push on the bottom of the board, gently it's going to come out, and then it's going to come from behind those 2 screws. So that will allow you to move it out here a little bit. So Now I'm going to go about taking the connections off. So hold down on the board as you take these off. Okay, the rest are, so I always like to take a picture of the board too with the tag. So the short and sweet is the top two rows are single digit numbers and the bottom two rows are double digit numbers. So for instance, this is CT4 and it is marked 44. CT5, 55, and then you'll have BR3. So the top BRs are the single digit, lower two rows, double digit. So I'm going to go ahead, remove all those, and put them back together with my new board. Now the thing I want you to be aware of with your new board, okay, is that you have lots of little needle pins. This is one assembly. If it does come apart, just take care when you're putting it back together that your needles aren't bound up and everything goes together without having to force it. So that's really one of the things that has happened before, and people try to put it together and we end up damaging the pins and we're right back where we started. So we have the board and some models. Now you're going to look in there and I'm going to show you when I take this apart. Some models have this cable on the display board. If you don't, it's a newer style. Don't worry about it. If there's not a connection, just tuck that wire up in here when you're done. So if it is, you take it apart, attach that, and then again, take great care not to bind or bend the needles. Goes together. Before I put the board back in, it's easier, so I'm going to take my one cable out that I know that I have to attach potentially. This isn't on all of them. So I'm going to collect up the rest of the wires. And I'm just going to use some masking tape. And I'm just going to hold those out of the way a little bit. So now I'll get my board. I will gently pull these apart. So even pulling them apart is what can bend those pins. So just going to go ahead, reattach that fitting, and then as I put these back in again, I just want to look at those pins. Everybody looks like they're want to go into their spots without too much coaxing. Again, it should just really go together quite easily. Okay, now that we've got that, we left our top screws in. So when we put this in, I'm going to catch that top screw. Of course, the cable's in the way, right? I'm going to catch that top screw. It's going to fit into the slots that are on the board. And then I'm going to go ahead and just tighten that up just enough. I'm going to make that snug. That is plastic. We don't want to crack the plastic. So what I do, these screws can be a little finicky, so I'll use a needle nose and I will grip the screw. I'll get it in place during that, and we'll go, it's in place, and that way I don't keep dropping the screw. And so when we tighten this, we just want to make it snug. We do not want to bear down on that. Another thing that we can do is use a piece of tape and kind of help our screw stay on the tip here. And let's put a little bit on there. It's going to hold my screw from falling. Let me get it into its spot. Again, snug. Tape comes out, and now we're ready to reattach everything. So remember, the top row are single digit tags on here. BR3, BR2, BR1, so on and so forth. And then the bottom two rows are going to be double digits. So CT6 would be 66. So get those reattached, hook it back up to power, and hopefully the light is now working. Thanks for your time. Let us know if you have any questions.